Have you ever been reading the Bible and just stumbled across a verse that made you uncomfortable? Well, today we're diving headfirst into one of those passages, Psalm 94. It's this raw, intense cry for vengeance, and it brings up some really tough questions about justice and anger and what God is actually like. So let's get into it. Have you ever looked at the world, at the news, at your social media feed, and just felt this question rising up from deep inside? How long, O Lord? How long are we going to see injustice just seem to win? How long will it feel like the bad guys are getting away with it? This isn't some ancient, dusty question. It's a deeply human cry that we still feel today.
And that leads us right to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? Because the psalm doesn't just ask how long. It goes a step further and actively calls on God for vengeance. And for a lot of us, that just sounds wrong. It feels vengeful, maybe even a little sinful. But what if we've been looking at this prayer all wrong?
So is this just a prayer for some kind of sinful revenge? Let's take a closer look at what's actually being said, because there's way more going on here than you might think at first glance. Okay, here it is, right out of the gate. O Lord, God of vengeance, repay to the proud what they deserve. This is the stuff that makes us squirm. But look very closely at who is being asked to act. It's not the person praying, it's God. And that right there is the key that unlocks this entire psalm. So here's the big twist. This prayer isn't about taking revenge into your own hands. It's actually the exact opposite. It's an act of radical faith, of incredible restraint. It's about handing justice over completely to the only one who can handle it perfectly.
And this gets even clearer when we dig into the original Hebrew word here, nakam. Now, this doesn't mean what we think of as vengeance, that hot-headed, sinful retaliation. No, it means a just, a measured, a rightful judgment. The psalmist isn't asking God to fly off the handle. He's asking God to be who he is, the righteous judge.
And this idea isn't just stuck in the Old Testament. The Apostle Paul, writing in the New Testament, basically doubles down on it. He tells believers, do not avenge yourselves, for one simple reason: perfect justice, or vengeance, belongs to God and God alone. So praying Psalm 94 is actually an act of obedience. It's you saying, God, this is your job, not mine.
Now, you can only pray a prayer like this if you have a deep, unshakable confidence in who God is. The person writing this isn't just venting into the air. He's grounding his cry for justice in the very character and nature of God himself. Just look at this incredible contrast. On one side, you've got the absurd theology of the oppressor. God doesn't see what we're doing. But on the other side, you have the psalmist's powerful, rock-solid logic. He's basically saying, wait a minute, the one who created the ear, you think he can't hear? The one who formed the eye, he can't see? It just completely dismantles the idea of a God who's distant or doesn't care.
So the psalmist's trust is really built on this three-legged stool. First, he trusts God's character as the just judge of all the earth. Second, he trusts God's covenant promises to his people, promises that can't be broken. And third, he trusts God's all-seeing knowledge as the creator. Put those together and you have an unshakable reason to believe that God sees, God cares, and God will act.
Okay, but this psalm isn't just about some far-off future judgment. It has a really pastoral, tender heart to it. It also answers the question, how in the world do we get through the day while we're waiting for that justice to come? And the answer is found right here, smack in the middle of this intense prayer. This beautiful, personal verse about comfort. It's not about pretending the anxiety isn't there. It's about God's presence, his comfort, meeting us right in the middle of all those cares. The psalmist also says something amazing. Blessed is the man whom you discipline. And that reveals this incredible truth. The waiting period is not wasted time. While we're waiting for God to deal with all the evil out there, he's actively teaching and shaping and forming us in here. Waiting becomes a kind of training ground.
So you see, this one psalm holds these two crucial realities together in perfect balance. It doesn't force us to choose. We get both. Real personal comfort for us as believers right now, and the certain promise of perfect future justice for the wicked.
So how does all this come together? How do we reconcile God's justice with his comfort? Well, the psalm points us toward an ultimate resolution. The ultimate, most powerful expression of God's vengeance, his perfect justice against evil, happened at the cross. Think about it. The justice that you and I deserved for our sin wasn't just swept under the rug. No, it was poured out, and it was fully satisfied in Jesus Christ. And that changes everything.
It means that for anyone who trusts in him, God's justice is no longer something we have to fear.
Which brings us right back to the heart of it all. To pray like the psalmist, to hand over the need for vengeance, is really an exercise in deep trust. It's trusting his character to be just, trusting his promises to be faithful, trusting his knowledge because he sees everything, trusting his work in our lives, and trusting his comfort to get us through.
You know, the really liberating thing about this psalm is this. You don't have to carry the crushing weight of making everything right in the world. You don't have to repay evil for evil. You can actually entrust that entire burden to the one who is strong enough and good enough to handle it.
So that really leaves us with a final, searching question. And it's not about whether we should care about justice. Of course we should. The real question is, when we see all the brokenness in the world, will we trust the judge of all the earth enough to handle it? Will we let him be God?